The message came at 0300 hours. Admiral Park Jun was sleeping in his quarters aboard Earth Station Prime when the emergency alert pulled him from his dreams. He had been dreaming of his daughter's wedding on Earth. Now he stared at a screen filled with fire and death. Kepler-4 for to be was burning. The colony had been home to 2.3 million humans, farmers, teachers, children, families, who had traveled across the stars to build new lives on a distant world. They had done nothing wrong. They had simply existed in a place where the Vreth Empire wanted to expand. Park Jun watched the footage in silence. Vreth warships hung in the sky like metal monsters. Their weapons fired again and again. Cities became craters. Forests became ash. The screams of millions filled the audio channels before going silent forever. He watched it 3 times. His face showed nothing, but inside his chest, something old and dangerous began to wake up. For 200 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Coalition. They had joined with hope in their hearts. They believed in cooperation. They believed in peace. They believed that different species could work together and build something beautiful among the stars. The galaxy taught them a different lesson. The older species saw humans as children. Worse than children, they called them short-lived vermin, primitive mammals, aggressive apes who had somehow stumbled into space travel. The Coalition accepted humanity only because they feared what might happen if humans remained outside their control, so they controlled them. Humans paid tariffs that were 3 times higher than any other species. They received the worst trade routes. Their ships were searched and delayed at every checkpoint. Their diplomats were ignored. Their requests were denied. Their people were insulted, attacked, and sometimes killed with no consequences. And humanity endured. They smiled and negotiated. They filed complaints through proper channels. They believed that patience and good behavior would eventually earn them respect. Ambassador Kim Hannah had dedicated her life to this belief. She stood in the Coalition Council chamber now, her black hair pulled back. Her traditional Korean dress a splash of color among the alien delegates. She had spent 30 years building relationships, learning customs, and fighting for humanity's place at the table today. She asked for justice. The Vreth Empire has committed an act of genocide, she said. Her voice was calm but firm. They destroyed an entire human colony without warning or provocation. We demand that the Coalition condemn this attack and hold the Vreth accountable. The Vreth ambassador rose to respond. He was tall and covered in blue scales. His yellow eyes showed no remorse. The colony was built in disputed territory. We warned the humans many times. They did not listen. This was a border dispute, nothing more. A border dispute? Hannah's voice cracked slightly. You killed 2.3 million civilians. There were children in those cities, babies in their mother's arms. Humans breed quickly, the Vreth ambassador said with a shrug. You will replace them soon enough. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Hannah looked around and saw delegates from a dozen species covering their mouths, their shoulders shaking with amusement. The Talarni, the Vorn, the Kasari, species that humanity had traded with, helped, and treated with respect. They were all laughing. The Coalition High Speaker, an ancient creature with gray skin and too many eyes, raised a limb for silence. The Council has reviewed the evidence. We find this to be an unfortunate border dispute. No further action will be taken. The matter is closed. Anna stood frozen. 30 years of work, 30 years of patience and diplomacy and hope. And they laughed. They laughed at 2.3 million dead humans like it was a joke. She walked out of the chamber without another word. Her assistant, a young man named Lee Minho, followed her. He had tears in his eyes. She did not. What do we do now? He asked. Hannah stopped walking. She looked out a window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Kepler-4 for 2b was still burning. Somewhere out there, the ashes of children drifted through the atmosphere of a dead world. Now, she said quietly, we stop asking. Admiral Park Jun received her report 1 hour later. He read it twice, though he already knew what it would say. The Coalition had failed humanity again. No, that was wrong. The coalition had not failed. It had done exactly what it always did. It had reminded humans of their place. Park Jun was 63 years old. He had served in the Earth's defense fleet for 40 years. He had fought pirates and protected colonies and escorted trade ships through dangerous space. He had believed in the system. He had taught his officers to believe in it too. Now, he opened a file on his personal computer. It was encrypted with codes that only 12 people in the entire human government knew. The file was 187 years old. It had been created by the first human leaders who joined the coalition. Right after they realized what kind of galaxy they had entered, the file was called Final Protocol. Park Jun read through it slowly. Plans, designs, locations, hidden shipyards, and asteroid fields. Secret research stations in the dark spaces between stars. Weapons that humanity had built but never revealed. Technologies that would make the coalition weep with fear if they knew they existed. For 187 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. They had smiled and bowed and accepted every insult. And in the shadows, they had built something terrible. Something that they hoped they would never need to use. Park Jun closed the file. He sat in silence for a long moment. Then he made a call. It says, Admiral Park Jun, authorization code Omega 77. Connect me to Earth Command. The screen flickered. The face of the Supreme Commander appeared. She was an old woman with white hair and eyes like iron. General Choi Yuna had led humanity's military for 20 years. She had also been waiting for this call. I saw the Council's decision, she said. I assume you're not calling to discuss diplomacy? No, Park Jun replied. I'm calling to activate Final Protocol. There was a pause. When Yuna spoke again, her voice was heavy with the weight of what was about to happen. You understand what this means? There's no going back. I understand. They laughed. General. They killed our children, and they laughed. Yuna nodded slowly. Then God forgive us for what we're about to do. I'll give the order. Wake them all up. The call ended. Park Jun looked out at the stars. He thought about the 2.3 million people who would never see another sunrise. He thought about the delegates who had laughed at their deaths. He thought about 200 years of patience and hope and peace. The patience had finally run out. Across human space, messages began to travel at faster than light speeds. Ships changed course. Factories powered up. Soldiers reported for duty. Scientists unsealed laboratories that had been locked for generations. The galaxy had wanted to know what humans were. Truly capable of? They were about to find out. The galaxy. Notice the silence on the fourth day, human. Ships stopped traveling through coalition space. Trade vessels returned to Earth's solar system and did not leave again. Communication channels went dark. Embassies closed their doors. Every human on every station and every world began moving toward home. At first, the other species did not care. The Vreth ambassador joked that the humans were sulking like children. The Talrani delegates said it was typical mammal behavior. The Khazari predicted that humanity would come crawling back within a week, begging for trade agreements. A week passed, then 2, then a month. The silence continued. Now the jokes stopped. Now the coalition began to worry. Human cargo ships carried goods that many species needed. Human engineers maintained systems across dozens of worlds. Human medicine, human technology, human food. The galaxy had grown used to having humans around. Even if they never respected them, the High Speaker of the Coalition sent a formal inquiry to Earth. There was no response. He sent another, and another. All of his messages disappeared into the void. What are they doing in there? The Vreth Emperor demanded during an emergency council session. Send ships to investigate. Coalition scout fleet jumped to the edge of human space. They found the border closed. Massive defense platforms hung in the darkness, weapons armed and ready. The platforms broadcast a simple message on repeat. Human space is closed. Turn back or be destroyed. The scouts turned back. Inside human space, something unprecedented was happening. Admiral Park Jun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Endurance, and watched the greatest military buildup in human history unfold before his eyes. Ships poured out of hidden shipyards. Soldiers awakened from cryo-sleep by the millions. Weapons that had existed only in classified files became real. Dr. Bigte was one of the people who made them real. He was a small man with messy gray hair and glasses that were always crooked. For 40 years, he had worked in a research station hidden in the ice of Europa. For 40 years, he had built things that he hoped would never be used. Now he stood before a council of admirals and explained what humanity had been hiding. Gravity lances, he said, pointing to a holographic display. They create focused gravitational fields that can crush a warship like paper. Range of 50,000 kilometers. The Coalition has nothing like it. He changed the display. Dimensional disruptors. They tear holes in space-time. Anything caught in the field is scattered across multiple dimensions. There is no defense against them. The admirals watched in silence. Some of them had not known these weapons existed. They were learning what their own species was capable of. Dr. Beak changed the display one final time. The room grew cold. Sun Eaters, he said quietly. They collapse stars. One device can end an entire solar system. We have 47 of them. Admiral Park Jun spoke first. Let's hope we never need to use those. Yes, Dr. Beak agreed. Let's hope. General Choi Yuna addressed the troops 3 days later. Her speech was broadcast to every human military base, every ship, every soldier across 1,000 worlds. 12 billion men and women stood at attention and listened. For 200 years, we tried peace, she said. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of mountains. We tried diplomacy. We tried patience. We believed that if we were good enough, kind enough, patient enough, the galaxy would accept us. Her eyes were hard as stone. They laughed at us. They killed our children and called it a border dispute. They looked at 2.3 million graves and made jokes. On ships and stations across human space, soldiers clenched their fists. Some wept. Some trembled with rage. All of them listened. Tomorrow, we show them what we really are. We are the species that conquered our own world. We tamed fire and split atoms and walked on moons. We turned wolves into dogs and made the wilderness into farms. Every obstacle we ever faced, we overcame. Every enemy we ever met, we defeated. Her voice rose like thunder. The Vreth wanted to know what humans are capable of. The Coalition wanted to see the beast behind our smiles. So be it. We will show them. We will show all of them. And when we are finished, no species in this galaxy will ever forget. The cheering lasted for an hour. Lieutenant Kong Sua did not hear the speech. She was too far away, hidden deep inside enemy territory. For 3 years, she had lived among the Vreth as a spy. She had changed her face and learned their language and pretended to be a servant in the Imperial Palace. Now, she crouched in a dark corner and recorded a message to send. Home. They have no idea what is coming. She whispered into her communicator. The Emperor is planning a celebration. He thinks humanity ran away in fear. He's calling it the Day of Human Cowardice. There will be parades and speeches about how the mighty Vreth drove off the primitive mammals. She paused to check that no one was nearby. Their defenses are standard. They haven't increased patrols or strengthened their borders. They believe they are safe. They believe we are weak. A cold smile crossed her face. They're wrong. Back on Earth, Ambassador Kim Hanna prepared to send one final message to the Coalition. She had spent 3 months helping with war preparations. She had reviewed battle plans and approved intelligence operations and done everything in her power to ensure that humanity would win. But she was still a diplomat. And diplomats always send a message before the shooting starts. She stood before a camera in her office. Behind her hung a painting of Korea's mountains. She wore traditional white funeral clothes. The color of mourning. The color of death. This message is for the Galactic Coalition, she said. Her voice was ice. You asked why humanity went silent. Here is your answer. She held up a single sheet of paper. 3 months ago, your council ruled that the deaths of 2.3 million humans were an unfortunate border dispute. You laughed at our grief. You mocked our dead. You showed us exactly how much our lives are worth to you. She let the paper fall to the floor. We spent 200 years believing in your coalition. We paid your tariffs. We followed your rules. We accepted your insults with patience and grace. We did everything right, and in return, you gave us nothing but contempt. Her eyes burned into the camera. The time is over. The humanity you knew is gone. We are done asking for justice. We are done filing complaints. We are done hoping that you will change. She took a breath. We are coming for the Vreth. Anyone who stands with them will fall with them. Anyone who stays out of our way will be left alone. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is a warning. She held up a new document. It contained a single word. The coalition has 1 day to respond. After that, remember this moment. Remember that you chose this. Remember that we gave you every chance to be better. She let the document fall. The word on it was visible for just a moment before the camera shut off. The word was, remember, the Vareth Empire had 400 warships guarding their border. They were proud of those ships. Each one was massive, covered in armor plating, armed with weapons that could crack moons. The Vreth had conquered 30 species with ships like these. They had never lost a major battle at dawn, on what humanity called Liberation Day. Commander Shindeho sat in the captain's chair of the Ghost of Soul. His ship was small compared to the Vreth vessels. It was also invisible to every scanner the galaxy had ever invented. Around him, hidden in the darkness of space, waited 200 more human ships, stealth destroyers, shadow cruisers, ships that the coalition had never seen because humans had never shown them. All units report ready, his tactical officer said. Deho nodded. He looked at the holographic display showing the Vreth border fleet. 400 ships, confident and unaware. He felt no anger, no excitement, only cold, clear purpose. Begin the operation. The human fleet emerged from nothingness like ghosts rising from graves. The first Vreth ships died before they could even raise shields. Gravity lances reached out across the void and crushed their hulls like tin cans. Explosions bloomed in silence. Debris scattered into the darkness. The Vreth commanders screamed orders. Their weapons fired in all directions. But there was nothing to hit. The human ships flickered in and out of visibility, appearing just long enough to fire and then vanishing again. The Vreth fleet admiral roared. Where are they coming from? No one could answer him. His flagship sensors showed only ghosts and shadows. His communications filled with the dying screams of his crews. 11 minutes after the battle began, it was over. 400 Vreth warships became 400 fields of wreckage. Not a single human vessel was scratched. Commander Shindeho surveyed the destruction without expression. Send the footage to the coalition. Let them see what happened here. The footage reached the coalition council within the hour. Delegates watched in horror as the pride of the Vreth military vanished in minutes. The Vreth ambassador stood frozen, his scales turning gray with shock. That's impossible, someone whispered. No species has technology like that. Humans do, Ambassador. Kim Hanna's voice came through the speakers. She was not present in the chamber, but her message played for all to hear. This is day 1. There will be many more. On the ground, the war was even more terrifying. Sergeant Ogion led a unit called the Reapers. They were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. Enhanced reflexes, powered armor, weapons that made Vreth military technology look like toys. Their first target was a Vreth military base on a moon called Varric 7. The base held 10,000 Vreth soldiers. They were well-trained and well-equipped. They had faced many enemies before. They had never faced humans like this. Gion. Their team dropped from orbit in pods designed to look like meteors. They hit the ground running, already firing before the Vreth knew they were under attack. The Vreth soldiers were big. They stood 3 meters tall with thick armored skin. Their claws could tear through metal. They had conquered dozens of worlds with nothing but their own bodies. None of that mattered, Jian. Moved through them like wind through leaves. Her rifle fired bolts of plasma that burned through Vreth armor like paper. When enemies got too close, she switched to her blade. The weapon hummed with energy, cutting through flesh and bone as if they were air. Her team was everywhere and nowhere. They used the shadows, the smoke, the confusion. They struck and vanished and struck again. The Vreth could not track them, could not predict them, could not stop them. By dawn, the base was silent. 10,000 Vreth soldiers lay dead. Jian's team had lost no one. She stood atop the command building and planted a flag. The blue and white of United Earth rippled in the cold wind. Below her, the last surviving Vreth officer knelt in chains. "Send a message to your emperor," she said. Her voice was flat, empty of emotion. "Tell him the ghosts are coming." Across the Vreth Empire, similar scenes played out. Human forces struck military targets with surgical precision. They destroyed shipyards and weapons factories. They liberated worlds that the Vreth had conquered centuries ago, and everywhere they went, they left survivors. Witnesses who could tell others what they had seen. The stories spread like fire. They move faster than we can see. Their weapons burn through our shields like they are not there. They do not stop. They do not rest. They do not show mercy. They are not mammals. They are demons wearing human skin. The Coalition received thousands of transmissions from Vreth commanders begging for help. The Council met in emergency session after emergency session. Species that had laughed at humanity 3 months ago now sat in terrified silence. "We must intervene," the Vreth ambassador pleaded. "The humans are destroying everything. If we do not stop them, they will reach our homeworld." The High Speaker considered this. He looked around at the other delegates. The Talrani, the Vorn, the Kasari. All of them remembered Ambassador Kim Hanna's warning. Anyone who stood with the Vreth would fall with them. "The Coalition cannot assist," the High Speaker said finally. "This is a conflict between humanity and the Vreth Empire. We will remain neutral." "Neutral?" The Vreth ambassador's scales flushed purple with rage. "You cowards. You promised to defend member species." "We promised to defend against unprovoked attacks," the Kasari ambassador said coldly. "You attacked a human colony first. You killed 2.3 million of their people. This is not unprovoked. This is consequences." The Vreth ambassador looked around the chamber. No one would meet his eyes. Species that had been allies for centuries now turned away. Friends became strangers. Partners became ghosts. He was alone. "He will regret this," he said quietly. "When the humans finish with us, they will come for you." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The humans were not coming for the Coalition. They were only coming for the Vreth. They were proving a point. They were teaching a lesson. And the lesson was this: humanity could destroy anyone who hurt them. They chose not to. For 200 years, they chose peace and patience and diplomacy. But the choice was always theirs to make. The Vreth had made them choose differently. Back on the Ghost of Soul, Commander Shindeho received new orders. The first phase was complete. The border was open. The path to Vreth Prime was clear. He looked at the star map. The Vreth homeworld glowed like a blue jewel in the holographic display. 40 billion people lived there. An empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. "Set course for Vreth Prime," he said. "It's time to end this." The engines hummed to life. The ship turned toward the heart of the Vreth Empire, and behind it, like an army of shadows, the entire human fleet followed. Vreth Prime was beautiful from orbit. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. Green continents stretched between them. Cities sparkled like diamonds in the night. 40 billion people called this world home. It was the heart of an empire that had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years now. Human ships surrounded it like a ring of steel. Admiral Park Jun stood on the bridge of the Endurance and looked down at the planet. His fleet had arrived 3 days ago. Since then, not a single ship had left Vreth Prime. Not a single communication had been allowed in or out. The planet was completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The Vreth Emperor had tried to surrender on the first day. His message was desperate, filled with promises and apologies. He offered territory. He offered money. He offered to personally punish everyone responsible for the attack on Kepler-44b. Park. June rejected it all. "We did not come for your surrender," he broadcast on every channel. "We came to make sure the galaxy never forgets us." For 2 more days, the humans waited. The Vreth population watched the sky with terror. Human ships hung above their heads like judgment itself. Any moment they expected the bombardment to begin. Any moment. They expected fire to rain down from heaven and burn their world to ash, but the fire never came. Instead, human dropships began to land. Thousands of them, touching down on military bases and government buildings across the planet. Soldiers poured out, armed and armored, moving with the terrible efficiency that had destroyed the Vreth fleet in minutes. They did not attack civilians. They walked past homes and schools and hospitals without even looking. They ignored Vreth citizens who ran screaming through the streets. They had only one target. The symbols of power. Sergeant Ogian led her reapers into the grand shipyard of Vreth Prime. It was the largest military construction facility in the Empire, capable of building 50 warships at once. 2,000 years of engineering knowledge was stored in its databases. Priceless technology filled its laboratories. Jian planted charges throughout the complex. When her team was finished, they walked out calmly and watched from a safe distance. The explosion turned night into day. The shipyard became a pillar of fire that could be seen from orbit. 2,000 years of military might, gone in an instant. Across the planet, similar explosions lit up the darkness. Weapons factories, research centers, military academies. Every facility that had contributed to the Vreth war machine was systematically destroyed. The Vreth military tried to fight back. Elite guards attacked human positions. Soldiers rushed to defend critical targets. They threw everything they had at the invaders. It made no difference. Human technology was generations beyond anything the Vreth possessed. Their bullets bounced off human armor. Their energy weapons dispersed against human shields, and human soldiers cut through them like farmers harvesting wheat by the 3rd day. The Vreth military no longer existed. Admiral Park June landed on the planet himself. He walked through the ruined streets of the capital city toward the Imperial Palace. Behind him came Ambassador Kim Hannah, dressed in the same white funeral clothes she had worn in her final message. Behind her came cameras that would broadcast everything to the entire galaxy. The palace gates stood open. The guards were gone. The Emperor waited inside, alone on his throne. Emperor Vraith VII was ancient, even by Vreth standards. His scales had faded to pale gray. His eyes were clouded with age. For 200 years, he had ruled the Empire with absolute power. He had ordered the deaths of billions. He had watched species go extinct at his command. Now he sat on his throne and trembled as 2 humans walked toward him. "You have one?" he said. His voice cracked like old paper. "What more do you want?" "I offered you everything. Territory, wealth, justice for your colony. What else is there?" Ambassador Kim Hannah stopped at the foot of the throne. She looked up at the creature who had ordered the deaths of 2.3 million of her people. She felt no hatred, no anger. Only a cold, ancient weight in her chest. "Stand up," she said. The Emperor did not move. "I am the ruler of the Vreth Empire. I do not take orders from your empire is gone." Hannah's voice cut through his words like a knife. "Your fleet is debris. Your military is dead. Your weapons are ash. You are nothing now. Stand up." Slowly, painfully, the Emperor rose to his feet. Human soldiers stepped forward and placed chains on his wrists. They led him down from the throne, down the great stairs, out into the plaza where millions of Vreth citizens had gathered. Hannah followed. She stopped before the assembled crowd and held up a data tablet. The screen showed a list of names. It scrolled on, seemingly without end. "This is the record of Kepler-4 for to be," she said. Her voice carried across the plaza through floating speakers. "Every name on this list is a human who died when you're emperor. Ordered our colony destroyed. Men, women, children, babies who never took their first steps. Old people who had worked their whole lives, all of them murdered for nothing." She handed the tablet to the emperor. "You will read each name aloud. All 2.3 million of them. The galaxy will watch. And you will finally understand that human patience is not human weakness." The emperor stared at the tablet. His hands shook. "This will take weeks. Then you had better start." The broadcast began immediately. Cameras carried the emperor's voice to every corner of the galaxy. Coalition delegates watched from their chambers. Citizens of 100 species gathered around screens to witness history. The emperor began to read. Age 4. His voice echoed across the plaza. Breath citizens wept openly. Humans stood in silent rows, their faces like stone. Age 37. Hour after hour. Day after day. The emperor's voice grew hoarse. It cracked and failed. Medical drones restored it so he could continue. Cho Yun Bai. Age 6 months. The names of babies hit hardest. Each tiny life that would never grow up. Each future that would never happen. The emperor had thought of them as numbers before. Now they had names. Now they had faces that appeared on screens beside their information. Kim Tae-woo. Age 82. Old people who had survived wars and disease and a journey across the stars, all of them cut down by weapons fired at the order of this one creature. The broadcast lasted 19 days. The emperor's voice gave out twice more. Each time, the medical drones repaired it. Each time, he continued reading. When he finally finished, he collapsed to his knees. His scales had lost all color. His eyes were empty. He had read 2.3 million names. He would hear them in his nightmares for whatever remained of his life. Ambassador Kim Hannah stepped forward. She took back the tablet and looked down at the broken emperor. "Your empire killed our people and called it a border dispute," she said softly. "Your coalition laughed at our grief and called it justice. Now you know their names. Now you will never forget them." She turned to the cameras. "This is what happens when you exhaust human patience. Not genocide. Not destruction. Just truth. Just memory. Just consequences." She walked away, leaving the emperor kneeling in the ashes of his power. Behind her, the flag of United Earth rose above the palace. The war was over. The reckoning had just begun. 1 year passed. The galaxy was not the same. The Vreth Empire no longer existed. Its territory had been divided among the species it had once conquered. Worlds that had lived under blue-scaled masters for centuries now governed themselves for the first time. Statues of Vreth emperors were torn down. New flags flew over ancient capitals. The emperor himself still lived. He had been sent to Kepler-4 for to be to the dead world he had created. He would spend the rest of his days there, alone among the ashes of the people he had murdered. Human ships visited once a year to bring supplies. Otherwise, he saw no one. He heard nothing but silence and wind. Some said it was mercy. Others said it was the cruelest punishment possible. The humans did not explain their choice. They did not need to. The coalition had changed as well. 23 species sent formal apologies to Earth. Their ambassadors came with heads bowed and voices soft. They admitted that they had been wrong. They admitted that they had treated humanity with contempt. They asked for forgiveness, Ambassador. Kim Hannah received each apology with grace. She did not gloat. She did not remind them of their laughter in the council chamber. She simply nodded and said that humanity looked forward to better relations in the future. 14 species quested protection treaties. They had watched what human ships could do. They had seen the ghost of Sol and its sisters tear through the Vreth fleet like shadows through smoke. They wanted those ships protecting them, not threatening them. Admiral Park Jun reviewed each request personally. Some were approved. Some were denied. Humanity was willing to protect others, but only those who had shown basic decency during the dark years. The ones who had been most cruel found themselves alone. General Choi Yuna retired from military service. She had led the greatest human military operation in history. She had proven that humanity could fight and win against any enemy. Now she wanted peace. "We built an army for defense," she said in her final address. "We used it for justice. Now, let us hope we never need it again." Commander Shindeho became the new admiral of the fleet. Sergeant Ojian was promoted to lead all ground forces. Dr. Baektae returned to his research station on Europa, where he began working on new technologies. Medical devices this time. Tools for building, not destroying. Lieutenant Kong Sua came home from her years undercover. She attended therapy for the things she had seen and done. Eventually, she found peace. She married a teacher from her hometown. They had 3 children who never knew war, but the most important change happened in the SEHM Council itself. Ambassador Kim Hannah took her seat for the first time since the war. The chamber fell silent as she entered. Delegates who had once ignored her now rose to their feet in respect. Species that had mocked humanity now watched with careful, nervous eyes. Hannah walked to her position without hurrying. She sat down and looked around the room. So many faces. So many species. Some she recognized from the old days. Others were new replacements for delegates who had been removed in disgrace. The High Speaker called the session to order. There was business to discuss. Trade agreements. Border disputes. The usual matters that kept the galaxy running. But everyone knew why they were really here. They wanted to hear what humanity would say. Hannah rose to speak. The chamber became absolutely silent. 1 year ago, this council laughed at the deaths of 2.3 million humans. 1 year ago, you called genocide a border dispute and told us that our lives did not matter. 1 year ago, you saw who we had chosen to be for 200 years and you decided to punish us for our kindness. She paused. Her eyes moved across the chamber, touching each delegate in turn. "We could have destroyed you. We had the weapons. We had the ships. We had the soldiers. We could have ended every species that ever mocked us, ever hurt us, ever treated us as less than what we are." The silence was so deep that the humming of air processors could be heard. Chose not to. She let those words hang in the air. We chose not to because that is not who we want to be. We do not want to rule through fear. We do not want empires built on graves. We want what we have always wanted since we first looked up at the stars. Partnership, cooperation, a galaxy where different species work together and build something magnificent. Admiral Park. June stood behind her now, along with General Choi Yuna and Commander Shindeho. All of them in ceremonial dress. All of them representing the power that humanity could unleash if pushed again. "You saw what we chose not to be for 200 years, Hannah continued. "You mistook our patience for weakness, our diplomacy for fear, our kindness for submission. Now you have seen what lies beneath," she smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who has chosen not to hunt. "So let me offer you a choice. The same choice we gave the Vreth. You can treat humanity as equals. You can work with us honestly and fairly. You can help us build the future we always dreamed of." Her smile faded. "Or you can test our patience again." She leaned forward slightly. "But I promise you this. No species in this galaxy will ever forget what happens when you push humanity too far. Our patience is vast. Our kindness is real. Our desire for peace is genuine. But our capacity for war is beyond anything you have ever imagined." She straightened and let her voice soften. "We are offering you friendship. Real friendship. The kind where we protect each other, help each other, grow together. We have technologies that could transform this galaxy. Medical advances that could extend your lives. Agricultural methods that could end hunger on 1,000 worlds. We want to share all of it." She spread her hands. "The question is simple. Do you want humanity as a friend? Or do you want to find out what it means to have us as an enemy?" No one spoke. No one moved. Then the Talrani ambassador rose slowly from his seat. He was old and tired, and his hands trembled slightly. He had been one of the ones who laughed in that chamber a year ago. He had lived with the shame of it every day since. On behalf of the Tillarni Confederation, he said quietly, "I vote yes to all human proposals. And I apologize. Not because I fear what you will do, but because I should have been better. We all should have been better." One by one, other delegates rose. The Vorn, the Kasari, species after species, standing and voting yes. Some apologized. Some simply voted. But all of them chose the same thing. They chose peace. When the last vote was counted, Ambassador Kim Hannah nodded. For the first time in a long time, her smile was genuine. "And let us begin." The session continued late into the night. Trade agreements were signed. Treaties were approved. A new era was beginning, built on respect instead of contempt. Hannah walked out of the chamber as the artificial dawn began to light the station. Park Jun walked beside her. Neither of them spoke for a long while. Finally, Hannah looked out at the stars. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "Do you think they really learned?" Park Jun considered the question. He thought about the war, the destruction, the 19 days of names being read aloud. The look in the Emperor's eyes when he finally understood. "They will remember," he said. "Maybe not forever, maybe not all of them. But for a long time, they will remember what happened when they pushed us too far." Hannah nodded slowly. "Good enough," she said. "For now, that's good enough." They watched the stars together in silence. Somewhere out there, on the dead world of Kepler 4 for to be, a memorial stood among the ashes. It was simple. A wall of stone with words carved deep enough to last 10,000 years. The words said, "We are the species that domesticated wolves, split atoms, and walked on moons. We turned our worst impulses into art and our darkest hours into triumph. We are humanity, and our patience, though vast, has limits." The galaxy would not forget, not ever.